Denmark's Prime Minister says she is working with NATO to improve security for critical infrastructure in the wake of drone activity that has forced the country to close its airports this week.
The latest focus is on how to stop intrusions by enemy drones into critical facilities.
However, a significant new challenge has emerged. Countries are now investing heavily in anti-drone technologies.
At 6 a.m. on a big event day, a city can quietly change the rules above your head. Not on the streets, up in the air, from rooftop level to the low clouds. The change is invisible, but it's real. More eyes, more alarms, and less freedom for anything that flies without permission. A few years ago, air borders mostly meant airports and national lines on a map. Now there's a new kind. Pop-up borders that appear for a concert, a playoff game, a power station, or a government building. It's often called a counter-drone, counter-UAS, or simply an anti-drone shield. This shield is not one big laser wall. It's a stack of tools and rules that work together: detection, jamming, and geofencing. And each layer has limits, loopholes, and big legal questions. Here's the twist. The hardest part is not stopping a drone. The hardest part is knowing what you're looking at, fast, without panicking over birds, balloons, or camera drones that are totally legal. So today, we're going to walk through how nations build invisible air borders, one layer at a time. A small drone can be harmless fun, but it can also be a problem in the wrong place, near a runway, above a packed crowd, or hovering near a sensitive site. That's why many governments moved from trust the pilot to watch the sky. In the United States, one of the clearest examples is sports. Federal rules restrict drone flights around major stadium events. For certain stadium events, drones are restricted within a 5.6-kilometer radius. And it's not only over the field, that's a big chunk of the city. This is an air border that appears for a few hours, then disappears. Europe uses a similar idea with a different name: geozones. These are parts of airspace where drone flights are allowed, restricted, or excluded, often near airports, hospitals, and even nuclear power plants. Different places, same goal: draw boundaries in the low sky. But rules alone don't catch a drone that ignores rules. So cities and nations started building something like a security system for the sky. Sensors to spot the drone, and tools to respond fast before it becomes a headline. If you want an invisible border, you need invisible tripwires. That's what detection is. And drone detection is hard, so systems often use more than one method because each one has weaknesses. One method is radio detection, listening for the signal between the drone and its controller. It can work well, but it can struggle in noisy places where Wi-Fi and other devices crowd the same bands, and some systems need a clear line of sight. Another method is radar, sending out radio waves and catching the reflections. Radar is great for many aircraft, but small, low-flying drones can be difficult targets, especially close to buildings where reflections get messy. Then there's video, regular cameras or heat-sensing cameras. Cameras can confirm what radar thinks it saw, but they need a clear view, and fog, glare, and darkness can make them struggle. And finally, acoustic detection, microphones that listen for the buzz of motors and propellers, matched against known sound patterns. The problem is obvious: cities are loud, and acoustic range is limited and depends on conditions. So the anti-drone city doesn't rely on one super sensor. It relies on teamwork: radar that hints, radio that listens, cameras that confirm, and software that fuses those clues into one simple message: drone, or not sure yet. Catching a drone on a screen is only step one. The next question is the scary one: who is it, and should it be here? That's where the idea of a drone license plate comes in. In the United States, that system is called remote ID. It helps identify drones in flight, plus the location of their control station or takeoff point. The goal is public safety and better awareness in shared airspace. Remote ID rules have been rolling out for years. Today, non-compliance can lead to enforcement actions. But here's the catch that keeps security teams awake. Identification works best when the drone cooperates. If a drone has no remote ID, or it's home-built, or it's using unusual control methods, the system may fall back to unknown. And unknown near a packed stadium feels very different than unknown over an empty field. That's why the Shield is not just tech, it's also a playbook. When to watch, when to warn, when to pause the event, and when to call specialists. An invisible border needs visible decisions. Now we reach the part most people think of first, stopping the drone. And the first stop sign is often built into the drone itself, geofencing. Geofencing creates virtual boundaries that limit where a drone can fly. The drone compares its position to a map of prohibited areas, then warns the pilot or blocks entry automatically. Manufacturers do this too. Some systems provide guidance on areas where flight may be limited and can issue warnings as the drone approaches a zone. But geofencing is not magic. It mostly deters accidental intrusions. Skilled people with bad intent might build drones without it or disable it. That's why the Shield can't depend on geofencing alone. So what about jamming, blasting noise so a drone loses its link or navigation signals? This is where the story gets serious, because jamming isn't just a tool, it's a legal and safety minefield. In the United States, it is illegal for the public to use jamming equipment that interferes with authorized radio communications, including GPS. Jamming can also block emergency calls and public safety communications. So when people say, just jam the drone, the real answer is, most people can't legally do that, and doing it carelessly can hurt innocent communications. In many places, only certain authorized government users have narrow authority, and even then, it's tightly controlled. That's why modern air borders often focus on safer steps first: detect, identify, warn, and coordinate before anyone reaches extreme measures. The Shield is designed to protect the public, not create new dangers. Now let's run one sky lockdown day as an illustrative scenario. Not a specific real city, just how the stack can work when it's used at full strength. Morning, the event command team checks the clock and the map. The restricted bubble around the venue is planned and public, and no drone messaging goes out so normal hobby flyers don't wander in by mistake. Midday, the sensors are already awake. Radio scanners listen, radar watches for small movers, and cameras are ready to zoom in. The goal is not drama, the goal is to avoid false alarms while still catching the real thing. Then it happens. An alert pings. Something small is moving toward the venue at low altitude. The system tries to classify it, because one wrong guess could stop a whole event for nothing. If remote ID data is available, that can help sort known from unknown. If it isn't, the system relies more on sensors and behavior, where it came from, where it's going, and how fast it's moving. Now the human part kicks in. Security coordinates with aviation authorities and local teams. The plan may include pausing certain outdoor moments, directing staff to watch specific sky sectors, and preparing a response if the drone crosses the line. If the object turns out to be harmless, say a legal drone far outside the restricted zone, the story ends quietly. But if it keeps pushing toward the crowd, that's when the invisible border becomes very real, very fast. Stadiums are where this new world is easiest to understand, because the stakes are human and close. Thousands of people, bright lights, live TV. One drone can cause panic even before it does anything else. And the rule bubble is not tiny. For major stadium events, the restriction can be a 5.6-kilometer radius around the venue. This changes how cities plan big days. It's not only the police on the ground, it's also the low-altitude airspace treated like a secured perimeter, patrolled by sensors and enforced by coordination. Now move from crowds to infrastructure. Many countries treat certain sites, power generation, fuel storage, key industrial zones, as places where drones can create safety and security risks, even if nobody is watching from stadium seats. In parts of Europe, geozones can restrict flight near airports, hospitals, military installations, and nuclear power plants. That's the air border idea applied to critical sites. In these places, the Shield is often less about one big day and more about daily life. The sensors are tuned for fewer false alarms, and the rules are stricter because the cost of a mistake can be higher. This is also where geofencing becomes a soft fence. Many drone systems provide up-to-date guidance on areas where flight may be limited and warn pilots before they enter certain zones. But the hard truth stays the same. Soft fences help responsible users. For determined intruders, you still need detection and response. So the invisible border becomes a layered border, rules plus sensors plus trained action. At national borders, the problem gets bigger. It's not one stadium bubble. It's long distance, rough terrain, and drones that might fly at night or in bad weather. The air border becomes part of border security itself. This is where some countries are experimenting with more advanced counter-drone tools, including directed energy ideas. For example, South Korea has reported plans to deploy laser weapons designed to shoot down drones. But the main point is not the sci-fi headline. The main point is that borders are pushing governments to treat low-altitude airspace like a real security domain, something to monitor, map, and defend, just like land and sea. Every invisible air border comes with a trade-off. More safety means less freedom for hobby pilots, less privacy for people under sensors, and more pressure to share identification data in real time. And when people talk about just jam it, the trade-off gets sharper. Jamming can disrupt emergency calls and public safety communications, and it is illegal for the public in the United States. So the future likely isn't one perfect shield. It's a constant balance: better detection, clearer rules, smarter geofencing maps, and stronger coordination, so the sky can stay open where it's safe and locked down only when it truly has to be. Because the real anti-drone city is not a city under a dome, it's a city with an invisible border that can appear, tighten, and relax, like a smart lock in the sky. And once you notice it, you start seeing the airspace map everywhere you go.